Music is a language that really speaks to us and that we can connect to with our feelings. Music and being creative was a good, really very powerful healing tool for me. Yeah, I try to invoke this healing force, and sometimes it really felt emotionally that I was actually peeling off my skin. And Maria and I became friends. And then she contacted me and she said, like, yeah, I have this new project. Yeah, it's probably not gonna be super big, but it's really fun. This is a cool thing on the side.
Hello. So today we are talking to Annicke Shireen. Maybe we just start from the beginning, how you started to do what you do, and what are you doing now? What are your main occupations?
Yeah, okay, let's do it. I'm excited. Okay, so yeah, I started making music when I was very young. I started writing songs the moment I learned to write, actually, because I was just writing poetry. And I have old diaries of when I was learning to write, and I've already wrote down sort of like poetry things. I think from young when I was younger. When you're young, you learn a lot of songs in school, and I really like to make my own or change them. And yeah, I never really stopped doing that. So more I got older, I started to write more deeper poetry. The more you connect, of course, with your deeper feelings when you grow, I would always write them down. And the moments, I think my mom asked me, would you like music lessons? Would you like to do something with music? And then I said to her, yes, I would love to. And she brought me to so I got guitar lessons as a child, and then I started to write my songs. And I only knew like 2 chords or 3 chords, and I started already. So that was something, because when I learn something new, like a new skill, it really triggers also to be creative, I think. And I still have that now. And I think everybody, like the brain works a little bit like that. For a lot of people, that when you learn a new skill, you start to implement it right away. And yeah, that's just part of learning, is also playing around with it. So creativity for me is really connected to learning, and yeah, that helped me a lot. So this is why I started making songs and music. Uh, and I figured out along the way, when I got a little older, that music is a different language than just words, because I can someone can talk to me, or I can listen to music, and when someone talks to me, I can relate or not relate to a story and have an opinion and maybe advice or feel something like that. But with music, I'm not expected to communicate back. I'm just there listening and being present. And so I think music is a language that really speaks to us and that we can connect to with our feelings and emotions. It's a language with ourselves, I think. Um, yeah, it's maybe a bit cryptic, but that is
No, I think
so for
it's
me. That
it's it's great
yeah,
answer, and I totally feel you. Because for me, it's also like when I have a change of mood and I want to, focus and get
yeah,
in a better shape. I usually turn on some music.
yeah,
Some people turn
yeah.
sad music, so they kind of, I don't know,
Are you
remove the sadness and those feelings, and then they become better.
are you a sad music person or a happy music person?
I'm like both. When I
Okay.
hear the music, I kind of usually save it on Spotify as something that I like, and it's somehow it's lyrical songs. Sometimes like really, really lyrical, but in the same time, if I listen just to lyrical music, I can become like a melancholic. I don't want that. So, and now it's
Yeah.
mix of melancholic music, Nordic folk, and French techno.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I love sad music. I can really wallow in the sadness and really like go through all the feelings. And for example, like Chelsea Wolfe, listening to her, it's really that she really pushes my sad buttons. But I want to feel that because it's also part of it, you know? And it's also processing, I guess. And that's what I mean with the language of music, is that our feelings we can actually uh, specific music speaks to specific feelings that or emotions and bring them to the surface. Like call them, I don't know. All right, I think I didn't finish your question actually.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah. So
or
I was curious, like how you end up also being seamstress and costume maker, and
yeah, I know. Yeah, I have a story. So my mother, when I was younger, my mom would make dresses for the local ballet school. So when from child on, she had like two sewing machines and a locker machine. She had it was like part of her household, and there was fabric everywhere. Especially when she was working towards the because every year there would be a big performance, and all kids from like 4 years old until 15, 16 would perform. So everybody would study in a dance, and then we had this big dance thing, and we had classical ballet, and there was um, a modern ballet, and breakdance was super trendy at the time. So we would do several styles and several age categories, and my mother would make all the costumes. So she would just be sewing all weekend, having tea, and sometimes friends of hers would come over. So I remember this as a very fond, nostalgic way of that, like house turning into colorful tulle piles, and yeah, and their sewing machine was also always ready to use. And I think I started really sewing stuff when I was 11 or 12, because we didn't at the time have money for so many new clothes. I remember that, I mean, we weren't poor or anything, but not the most, rich in money. So I remember having all these like things that I wanted to buy, but I couldn't. So tried to make my own dresses and new clothes. So I think I looked as really ridiculous when I was 12 because I would wear my own made clothes, and it was like a mess. It was just made of old shirts and, you know, stuff, fabric that I would buy on the market. And, but I got really supported in this. So, um, yeah, and I wanted to become a songwriter, so I went to the Rock Academy in Tilburg, and I tried to apply for it, and they said no because I didn't know enough musical theory, and I just couldn't get there to learn it. So I went to art school, and I tried different, like I tried illustration, and I tried I think it was illustration, graphical design, and fashion. I just tried a couple of them, and then I got. They were extremely enthusiastic when when I did my fashion sort of like take in for audition. It's an audition you have to do. So I felt very flattered, and I felt very wanted. I felt like, oh, they really like what I do. So I just went to there. So I started to do fashion design on art school, and I fell in love with the tailoring. I really fell in love with making items, and also the relationship that people have with their clothes, because it's not just clothes. For some people it is, but most people, there's a whole identity concept behind it. And that was a super interesting thing. And I realized that I liked creating stories, or like sort of like I liked creating a fantasy world with characters. So the way that when we go play D&D, we design our own character, and you're this cool like elf ranger with upside down stuff, or with a cool twist on style. And I think that's what I started to do in fashion school. That's what you do. You create uh sort of like a story with a style, and it's very conceptual. And uh yeah, I loved it. Um, and in many ways, it was very eye opening to me. And then after started, I got my diploma. I started a business, and I started to make custom clothing for people. and I never really quit playing in bands and playing music. So when I started also performing, I would make my own stage clothes, and that would look pretty awesome. So it would become this thing, like a selling point for my music. And then I realized that music and art like this go very well together. And yeah, I was inspired by all the female artists who have an extravagant style. There's so many of them, and they all tell stories with their style, and it was just really refreshing to see. So this is how it kind of built up together, because Shireen was born, and it was fashion, and it was music, and that was how it started. So, and the end.
Yeah, and I'm amazed that simply at how many different things you do, and that you do such a great things in music and in at fashion. I watched your music videos; they're like opulent, like a lot of clothes there.
Yes.
It's like a trademark of your videos, almost. That whatever the story is, that there will be clothes, like
Yeah.
elaborated clothes.
Yeah. If I can, and I have the time for it, I definitely will.
Yeah, and you have your project Shireen since 2009, and you have your solo project for 2 years. So, what's the difference? Like, I understand that you are writing for both.
So the difference with Shireen and with my solo, the only difference is that Shireen is always with the band members, so I always write together with them. So Shireen is not just me; it's like a whole band. It's we've had some shifts with people, but right now it's Berend on guitar, it's Rowan on violin, and then we have Hein, who is a long member, on bass guitar. Guido, who is on synths, he's there also quite long already. And then we have Wouter right now on drums, and Wouter is actually a hired in musician, but he's also really into writing together with us. So yeah, have Shireen is kind of half professional musicians, half old long sitting members, and it's a really nice vibe. So that is one group. But of course, sometimes I want to do more. I have more time. I had a while when Shireen was a bit more difficult. A couple of people were struggling with private stuff because we had Corona and times like that. So some people fell ill and needed to, you know, to, take some rest. And I really wanted to write. I needed to write. So I felt like I was held back a little bit because the band was held back because of personal things. So I found a couple of other people to write with, and the music that I wrote then was just very different and in style. So it was mostly with Koen Herfst, um, and he's a rocker. He's a great drummer, great musician, and we clicked very well on a creative level. So we started writing together, and there's actually some music that we haven't yet released, which is still ready to release. But yeah, because I wrote it with someone else, it didn't feel right to put it in Shireen because nobody of Shireen had actually written together with me. So we made it into a solo thing. And I understand it can be confusing. So now I'm maybe brainstorming a little bit about maybe should give my solo project a different name. Maybe I should get a cool name that really separates it. But then I don't know what name I should take. So I'm still in sort of like a twilight zone with that.
I noticed that your like non-Shireen but Annicke Shireen music, you have those names for the records, Serpent and Demonet. So, but there are no songs like that. And why did you choose those names?
Yeah, I can explain. So it's actually a story of three EPs. The third EP is not there yet. Um, the first EP, the serpent. So the serpent is the time is a healer. The symbol of the serpent is a healing symbol. It's a healer because the serpent has the power to throw off its old skin and grow new skin. So I started writing together with Koen for the serpent when I was in a very deep space emotionally and mentally. And I really felt like I needed to change in the core of myself something to actually feel good again. So I just, at the time, I felt really connected to the symbol of a serpent because I wanted to um, shed all the old pain, like shed all the old skin and grow new. And in this time when I was really working through that, of course, I also went into therapy. I also did the normal stuff, but I felt like music and being creative was a good, really very powerful healing tool for me. I felt like, yeah, I tried to invoke this healing force. And sometimes it really felt emotionally when I went through this dark space that I was actually peeling off my skin. And then it just felt like it wasn't ready, but it needed to go, and it just needed to let go because sometimes we hold on to old pain and it just hurts us more. So I just felt like this was a cleansing thing. And the serpent was a very powerful symbol that connected it. And it never really left me. Also, the idea of that we are capable of so much healing and so much growth. And that sometimes we need to shed old things, even if it's painful. So that's what the serpent is about. And then Timonet was actually because I went into therapy and I needed to, and you learn to go through all the stages of your emotions. And what I denied myself was actually anger. So I could not, I felt guilty when I was angry. And I think Demonet is just my anger. And I just try to write this in a way that I wanted to really just write the anger out of me. But then when I released it, I got a lot of messages from people saying, "Oh, it really feels like you wrote this song for me. I went through the same thing." Or so I noticed that when I expressed this emotion, that a lot of people actually, I found connection again to a lot of people who went through the similar thing, and that was actually very um, soothing as well because you're not alone. When you're in this dark place, you think you're all by yourself, but it's not. Like most people go through something at some point in their life like this, and yeah, I guess maybe my music now is helping people going through that. I hope, or yeah,
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
just night riffs.
I I'm really really interested in what you say. Like, it's really beautiful to hear about that. I always kind of, let's say, curious about that energetical thing that happens when people create music or listen to music, and like how it is connected to like personality and internal things and internal experience. And
Hmm.
because I've been talking to some people, and I interviewed one doom metalist from Finland, and he was
Oh, cool.
we were discussing like exactly that those people who write very dark lyrics, doom metal. It's like he wrote like, I think
Yeah.
he wrote like 2 CD album, like long one, and there is a
Well,
hope in last verse of last song. So and he basically said that's how it's for him, that he also does a similar thing. It expresses his um, kind of feelings and what is going on inside him. He releases it, and those people, they actually feel very happy and cheerful after
and
in life, because they have the therapy on stage.
yeah,
And
it's it's really funny to think of the fact that we're all listening to music and it's actually just therapy sessions for musicians to feel better, and we are all very inspired by it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I understand that. I mean, when I read the text, I read the text of Pray, and
Mm.
it reminded me of your song So Human of You. Is like about some manipulative person who is kind
Yeah.
of attacking the character in the song, um, and it does feel like it's very personal. And I wanted to ask, how how does it feel like? Because for myself, I try always to keep personal stuff inside. I'm not ready to speak about it on social networks and so on. But how does it feel like to open up and like talk, release these feelings out in the open, like publish them in the song and work with those feelings?
Uh, it can be very terrifying and very vulnerable, because I also think that, it's poetry, so it's never really like the literal thing. But of course, when I read it back, there's so many ways you can interpret it. Yeah, I mean, I feel like people could judge you when you share these really vulnerable things or like personal things. But on the other hand, they can't really, because it's poetry, it's art, right? So sometimes when I write, I make things extremely cryptic, and nobody knows who I'm talking about or what. So actually, for example, it's so human of you. Big part of that is actually written for my own inner critic. It's not for someone else. It's for myself. So
Yeah,
because I
I was
have been
thinking, who is
judging myself.
abusing you? Who is trying to like?
It was me. It was my own. It was my own. Like, when you start to do something, and then you have this voice in your brain saying, "Hey, you better stop now because you're gonna fail, and everybody, or like nobody's gonna enjoy this," or all these thoughts that we have that keep us small, just to so that we think that we can't do anything. And I think that, for example, I wrote that, and then someone I remember writing a comment on YouTube, which is like a big toilet. Like everything on the comments on YouTube is it's a different world with different rules. And I used to read them a lot, and I don't do that much anymore. But I remember someone writing, yeah, the it's a cool song, but the lyrics sound very uh like childish. And I could kind of relate to that, because it's been 10 years ago that I wrote that song. But remembering that I wrote that because I was battling my own inner critic, that's not a childish thing. That's also actually pretty grown up. So, but I did it in the words that I had at the time. So I feel like, yeah, it is, on one side it's vulnerable because it's forever out there, and if you change your mind, then it's still out there. But on the other side, it's just a song. You can, if people don't like it, or yeah, you don't have to listen or read the lyrics. So yeah, it's also a moment in time.
Yeah, and I got curious about other song, which is like also from that album called "Bright as Daylight." Basically, it has that refrain that "Let the witch drown." So typically it's antagonist in art that would like
Yeah.
to kill the witch, but here it's written like witch should be killed. So I was wondering who is that witch and why.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I remember at the time, when I was writing a lot of that, I was very much, I was very busy with how women in history would accuse other women, or like be. I mean, because it's, or not in history, but like in life. But this is in a historical setting, the brightest daylights. Um, and it's about seeing wonder in life. Let me think. On a scorched black hill on top of. Oh yeah, it's about also giving up your crown. So, yeah, it's about. So it's very deep. How do I explain? Okay, yeah, the witch in the story is the woman who's been judged, and then there's this lady who says it's time to give up your crown. Where there is a voice, or like it's time to give up the crown, and it's been a beautiful joy to have been in this situation, but it's time to pass it on, and for someone else to take the stage. So it is also a very personal thing about taking that space for yourself and going on stage, and then also knowing when to give it to someone else and when not to go on a stage. Because I always have been personally struggling with wanting to show myself and being super enthusiastic, but also being pushed and feeling like I'm too much and being sort of like hold back because of it. And I think this is most of the songs in Matriarch are actually um about parts of these things that we as women, but maybe also as men, uh but mostly women, they are too much by other to society standards, and then we have to make ourselves smaller or make space for that and judge each other, because if I am going to make myself smaller to accommodate society, then that woman should do it too, because if I need to do it, then everybody should do it, because otherwise why am I doing it, right? So this is the whole like subconscious thing. I think that when I was younger, I would struggle with that. That's a very personal thing. And it's a big thing as well. I mean, it's like a life thing. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like especially when somebody is as creative as you are, and like as apparently most people in the scene that you are in is are like a little bit of misfits, people who don't fit with like ordinary society quite often, and especially creative people who are creative. So they're also like different. They do things that others don't get usually, and like because apparently person should just fulfill one's duties, and there is probably a lot of pressure from society that kind of make you feel doubtful about I'm doing the right thing, like should I pursue my art or is it like a toy that they and other people they don't care, they would just tell you, oh, like it's not serious, you're not gonna get rich with that, and you will, I don't know, go to social services for food and
Yeah. I mean, that's okay, but yeah, it's hard to. I think you can't always please everyone. I remember when I went to art school that my grandmother would say, "Oh, you never get the job with that," and now, I mean, she's not there anymore. So but I know that when when she passed away, that's she was actually really, really proud of me. So, but if I had listened to her, I would never done this. Yeah, I would have just found a sensible job. And sometimes I wish I had. Uh, but yeah, I mean, you can make one choice and not five in your life. Like these big choices, like you go into a direction and that's the direction you go into. And you can change your mind, but you can't do like five things at the same time. So you have to choose.
if you have different interests. I do. I have several, and it's like hard to find time.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do some photography. It fills me from inside. You can get
Mhm.
like that feeling of fulfillment if you just hang out with people, like go to parties, but then you
Yeah.
go back home, and what are you there? Like what lights you from inside if you know nobody is validating you from outside, if you are
Yeah.
just by yourself. And there
Yeah.
is a risk, like if you are alone at that moment and you don't make anything out of yourself, then you simply go depressed because you feel like you are nothing. And it's important
Yes.
to have that light inside, and that art
Yeah.
is one of the things that I think does that, give you true
Yeah.
fulfillment.
Yeah. You really have to enjoy your own work. Otherwise, you cannot do this. If you really hate what you do, if you yourself hate your own work, that's really hard. I mean, I know that some artists really hate what they did. You know, you do something, you make it, and then you finish it, and then you look back and you're like, oh, it's terrible. It's terrible.
uh,
I mean, I've been there too,
aren't they all aren't
but
all the
that's a
artists
part of
adoptable?
yeah, it's part of it. But if you have this and you can never ever enjoy your own work and enjoy doing it, then you just shouldn't do it. Then it's just torturing yourself. So you need to be your own supporter. You need to be your own number one fan. And of course you can be a critic as well, but you need to be there for yourself.
Yeah, I think just hate everything about oneself. It's something that needs, treatment, because it's like not entirely normal. I think the normal thinking that is to be somewhere in the middle. You're kind of unhappy about some things. You always learn and you could do better, but at
Yeah.
the same time, you know that you okay. I'm already went that road for some distance, and I have something that I'm achieved,
Yeah.
and otherwise if you forget about it, and actually people from ordinary like life, they try to focus on those negative sides and kind of
Yeah.
teach you only focus on negatives, and that's important to fight against.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's easy for other people also to be critics towards other people. It's easy to see something and say, ah, that's shit. I think the whole internet is right now doing that a little bit to each other. Super negative sometimes. Yeah.
I would like first to ask how you ended up in Heilung, because apparently many people know you from there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so like because other members, they are usually come from that reenactment circles. Were you also a
Most,
reenactor,
yeah,
or
many of them.
yeah?
No, no, I met Maria before Heilung existed. Um, we have a mutual friend who introduced us. Her name's Katiran. She's a musician as well. You probably know her name. Yeah. So
I
she
did three
was friends
interviews
with
with her.
Maria.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. You told me. Yeah. So yeah, she was a friend that I know from a long time, for a long time now, and she knew Maria as well. And I guess they knew each other from the Omnia era, which is like a long time ago. And what happened was that Kati, she introduced me and Maria and I became friends. And Maria at the time was singing in Uzine or Oizen, which it's said Uzine, but a lot of people say Oizen, so that's why I say it like that too. And Uzine is also a female fronted rock band um, with her lyrics, and super cool. And Shireen was a bit more folky, but doing similar music. So we could be actually we talked about doing a couple of shows together, and we were very inspired by each other and by each other's style. And I remember in 2015 or something making a dress for Maria for her using show. So I made one of her stage dresses, and from then on, we just always kept in contact and appreciating each other. And and then she contacted me and she said like, "Yeah, I have this new project." And I remember her saying, "Yeah, it's not probably not gonna be super big, but it's really fun." She said it's just a it's just a cool thing on the side, and we're gonna do a show at Castlefest. And can you help me out with the makeup? And I want to talk about, because she was making her costume, and she said like, I want to talk about some ideas and about some things that I want to do. Uh, and she had seen a jacket before that I made, and she just wanted to not really have advice, maybe a little bit advice, but also like just a brainstorm about it. So we had a video call about it, and I offered to help her with makeup. So I did her makeup for that first show, and this is how it started rolling. So they knew. So I did her makeup um, for Lifa, and then I joined most of the gigs from then on to do all the makeup. So Maria's makeup, but also bring the makeup for the warriors for the rest of the band. And I would tour with them. And then Lifa was written, and of course Lifa. No, sorry, Futa. Futa was written, and Futa has a lot of layered Maria vocals, which she can't sing 3 times at the same time live. So they needed female vocalists to take these parts, and I think I had a short talk with them about it because I was already touring with most of the shows with them, and it was really easy for me to just step in for 3 songs, and then it grew from there. So in the beginning, we would only sing Nurulpo, Ozan, and only those two songs, maybe a third one. I think only two or three songs. And then Drief came out, and now the band is very heavy on our vocals, like me, Maria, and Mira. Of course, Maria is the lead, and then Mira and me, we are now a big part of the show, and that really grew. We started out small, with the whole band. Started out small, but it grew. Yeah.
I always go to Heilung when I can. And,
Really?
yes, so last time I was photographing for the band.
Yeah, I remember.
And I would say, of course, everybody is very impressive on stage, but my eyes were keep drawing to you, like you somehow had that very intense presence there. And I just meant to ask, like, when you first entered the stage with Heilung, how did it felt?
Well, I think it was very intimidating. Right before I joined Heilung, I think one of my biggest gig was with Wardruna on stage. They played in Roadburn in 2015, 17. I don't really remember, but before that, I only had done Shireen shows, and Shireen, that was, I remember with this band, with that time, going through terrible stage fright, a really, really heavy fear. And really, every time when I would go on stage, I was so scared that sometimes I would just block and I couldn't sing that well. And it was very demotivating. It becomes like this negative spiral. And then I had one good gig, and Einar Selvik was there, and he asked me to sing in Wardruna, which I was very, very, that was a big deal for me. I was like, wow, thank you. And I got paid for the first time. And that was super scary. It's super intimidating. I loved it though. And it was I'm super grateful for that I got that chance. But remember with Heilung, but that time was a bit more confident because I had already been asked for Wardruna, and then Heilung asked me, and I had been touring with them, so I could see how it grew, so I could be quite professional in my brain. So I was like, yes, I'm ready for this. I know what to do, and I know where to improve, and I know I can work on this. So I think I just had it more together when I started with Heilung, and I just started really enjoying, really, really deeply enjoying performing. I really feel like when I go onto stage now, I feel like this moment in time, like this like bubble, and nothing else matters. We're just doing this. It's like the most mindful thing to be doing. But it took a while to get there mentally, of course. And I think the first times with Heilung, even though I was prepared and I was professional, I was also very well, not anxious, but I was like, there was a lot of tension. I was like, I need to do this well. It's very important that I'm not fucking up. I want people to like me. I want people to say, okay, she's cool. We keep her. So I also wanted to show the people like Chris and Maria. I wanted to show them you can count on me. I'm here. I'm a pro. So yeah, it was important for me to do well. And then the shows went bigger, and which, I mean, it, I think the most rewarding thing with Heilung was that the audience is so wild. Even the people, sometimes we have audience which is a bit more calmer, but I can see them enjoying themselves. Even if some people are just sitting like this, I can just see like there's total focus, and there's so much support and love, and some people are like, "Ah." And that's one of the best things, to stand there. You're standing there, you're singing, you're performing, and then other people just go mad for it, and they're really feeling it. And yeah, I love that. I love that energy. And I started to just also, when you have a bad day, that was also something. I sometimes have a bad day, and I went through really hard times when I was touring. Had a lot of relationship issues, and that the show goes on. So you need to tour, you need to dance. And even if I wasn't feeling it for myself, I really got inspired by the aesthetics of the rest of the group. For example, Mira, who's my singing buddy, her energy is wild as well. And before Mira, it was Emilia, and she has also a very inspiring presence. So I would just, I would never feel alone in that. And that's different with Shireen. It's me. I have to do it. And of course, the rest of the band is there supporting me, but I'm the only singer, so I'm the only person with a microphone, and it's more intimidating, I guess, than being in a group like Heilung. Being together with so many people, and this is show it that just rolls like a train. It's very safe.
Yeah, and thank you for being so open. I find it very, very beautiful that you are
Thank
open
you.
about those things and that you kind of mention those personal struggles and you are not putting on some sort of like mask of some, you know,
No, yeah, I'm
somebody
not good
who
at
is
putting a mask on.
yeah, some, but it's like you're very sincere and it's I really enjoy your answers and I think I'm really
Thank
moved,
you.
let's say. uh,
I'm
and
happy. I'm happy that
many people in Heilung, they're like spiritual, some of them are extremely spiritual and some
Mhm.
are not so spiritual, but what are you in that sense, like what is your spirituality?
So I think I struggled my whole life with faith because I went to a biblical school with the Bible, so I learned everything, and I really felt I in the Netherlands, from where I live, it's very Protestant and Reformed, which means there's not a lot of beauty in like visual beauty in faith, right? So the Catholic Church had beautiful golden statues and like Maria, who's like a feminine figure. And I think the Protestants or the Gereformeerd, which was like all
Yeah,
together in a
they
little bit.
protested at some point against all
Yeah,
that in
yeah. And
particular.
they
Yeah,
just killed the richness. It was like, nope, we're gonna be equal and everything's gonna be sober. And there's like a idea behind it which I can appreciate. But I think our culture is very, very based on that. And I struggled from small girl onwards that there weren't any exemplary figures, female figures, not in literature that much, and not in faith, and not in I mean everywhere women were just sidekicks. And for me, it was so important to have a main female role that only when I realized, when I heard someone say that God is a woman, that I was like, what? And it was just mind blowing to me. But I was a lot older by then. So spirituality has, in the beginning of when I was younger, it hadn't really helped me. It made me just very confused. I went to church and I remember sitting there and we were reading, and it maybe it's just the type of church I went to, right? And we had to read the sermon and the reverie, or like he was reading, and then we had this thing that we had to read, and one of these words were like, yeah, God, please forgive me, I am a sinner. And I was sitting there as like a, what is it, like a 9-year-old. I was sitting there reading that, thinking like, or nine. No, maybe I was 11. I don't remember. I think you. No, maybe I was 9. I don't know. I was very young, and my grandma would take me to church, and I would read that, and I would sit there feeling all like, no, I'm not a sinner. I didn't do anything wrong, and this is stupid. Like I don't want to say that to God. Like I'm a sinner. No, I'm not gonna admit doing something wrong while I did it. You know. So I was this sort of like, it really made me feel a bit rebellious. And my mother is very atheist, so I just never really, I didn't really connect with spirituality until I think until I started to deal with very deep personal trauma, and I started to also deal with extreme. So I think my birth, yeah, I had the stage fright. I think it was music actually making me spiritual because I went through hard stuff, and then I figured that there was more than just the world that I could see. And because there's so much more to experience. And I started to dive really deep into spirituality, but for me, it's a very personal thing. So um, I only found spiritual connection with maybe one or two people in my life, like really deep spiritual connection, maybe three. Um, but I did meet people who have extraordinary spiritual gifts that I recognize. So I am also not so much of an non-believer anymore. Um, and definitely with Heilung, there is a lot of people who are very focused on spirituality, who prioritize it, and so it's easier to be in that world of you know sometimes also listening to things that we maybe always knew and always saw and never really paid attention to. So, and yeah, as I said, for me, it's very personal. Spirituality is very personal, and I, I, I feel a bit uncomfortable talking about it. Not that I don't want to, but I just, um, yeah, I feel like
It's something that should not be, like be out. Yeah,
yeah, I
I
think
can.
with witchcraft, with spells, with things like that, it loses its power when you talk about it.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
com-
yeah, I can totally
and it's
relate.
not, yeah,
I feel the same
yeah,
actually
that's
about my worldview, and I'm not ready to
okay, yeah,
open up and like write
yeah, yeah.
online. So I hope you don't
But it's
mind
an
me.
interesting
However,
question.
yeah, I hope you don't mind me asking that. Of
No.
course, not gonna push any boundaries here. How does it feel actually to be in Heilung, the tribe? How does it feel from inside?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So Heilung is a very close group, and because we travel that much, we really, really got to know each other very deeply, very well. Um, and I really appreciate everybody in this group. There's a lot of differences. Um, some people are very quiet, some people are very loud, some people are very extra, and others are very introverted. And I think there's a flavor for every moment. So um, I found very deep connection with Maria and Mira, who are, of course, also we sing together, so that is something bonding. And also because we are sharing this backstage room together, that really helps you get closer because these moments before and after the show are very, very personal. And I think the rest of the group is really a mix of very beautiful, talented, interesting people. And it felt in the beginning a bit scary to be part of that. So have been very, I think I've always been very social, but I always kept a part of myself back. And I need a long time until I trust someone and I can be nice to someone and, have a good conversation with people, but to really, really deeply trust someone with my safety in my heart, that takes a longer time. And then what I saw in this group last night, some people are different and they just stuck together like Velcro, and they were just so like the best friends. And I saw this from the sideline. I was already touring with them, but I wasn't ready yet to be that good. And it really made me feel lonely or like scared that I couldn't fit in. And then gradually I just fit in. It just took a while. I just glided in and now I feel very at home with them. Yeah. So it's a group of people who really give people chances. And yeah, there's a loyalty to it and honesty in there. And also everybody, because it is artists and it is extravagant people. And it is also crew who has to deal with all the extravagant artists. So there's always, from every side, there is someone annoyed by someone and stuff like that. It's just people as well. So yeah, just throw a group of artists and creative people and passionate people together and also some introverts in the mix. It's That's what it is. It's a cocktail.
Yeah, and I really like that. At least from my experience with people from Heilung that I met personally, it's like people don't get too carried away with like status of the band right now, because band becoming quite big, and
Yeah.
even decided to have a hiatus now because it was probably demanded in every corner of the world, and it played so Glastonbury festival and so on. So it's like any like pop singer probably would be already quite unbearable at that point. But people in Highlands, they remain like humans, like and
Yeah.
approachable, let's say, and quite normal. I was about to close the interview with maybe what are your future plans? What is you looking forward as an artist?
Okay. So yeah, my future plans are I want to my personal goal is that I want to um focus more on my own music. I try to do that a little bit more. It's been a bit less the last few years because of Heilung, but also because of personal things. Because also fashion is a big part, and I try to get my money to get my income from fashion in the beginning, and now I feel like I want to grow as a musician, but I think mm, so that's like a goal that I have. Um, but I'm also aware that I want to be happy. That sounds really corny because everybody wants that, but I think it's really important for me to do everything that I do or focus on in order to make myself happy. Not in a way that I'm coping and running away from stuff, but in a way that I want to be passionate about what I do and really support to be in it with my full intentions. So that's something that's important for me. I want to feel free. So I want to experience freedom. Yeah, that's maybe a very deep, long talk that we can have next time. I don't know. It's my freedom
Well,
is a concept, but I want to be artistically free. Yeah,
I hope we
and
meet next time
yeah,
for another interview in some time, and
probably. Yeah,
I hope you tell me that you have you achieved some of those.
that would be nice.
So thank you so much for this interview, and
Thank you.
I just hope that your wishes will come true. And thank you for being so open and so nice.
Thank you. Thank you for this interview. I really enjoyed myself.